Suburban Sentinel here, along with Bella the camera cat, with part 2 of our review of the Ruger P95 9mm semi-automatic pistol. And Bella is already getting in the way. In this video, we will explore the logistics, or what I call the illities of the P95. The illities being reliability, maintainability, durability, supportability, and interoperability of the weapon. While logistics may not be a very sexy or exciting topic, these factors can often be the difference between having a gun that looks cool versus having a firearm that operates properly when the chips are down. So let's get into it. First and foremost is reliability. Does the gun go bang every time you pull the trigger? In determining reliability, I look at 3 things. 1, personal experience. 2, institutional usage. Does the military or some other governmental body utilize the same weapon? And 3rd, the reputation throughout the general shooting community. A few weeks ago, I purchased 3 identical Ruger P95s, one of which is here on the screen. I've put a total of 750 rounds through the guns, 250 a piece. Approximately 3/4 of those rounds were target loads of varying quality and brands. The other 25% hot-loaded self-defense ammo, hollow point type. In that usage, I've encountered 0 malfunctions across the board, which is very favorable, of course. What's also encouraging is the manufacturing consistency. That is, all 3 guns, as far as I can tell, feel the same and shoot the same. So my results are very favorable, but they are extremely limited. We're only talking a sampling size of 3 weapons and 750 rounds. So although that's relevant, it's certainly not dispositive on the issue of reliability. Moving on to institutional usage, I have no confirmed data that a government agency or other organized body uses the P95. I do know that the United States Army purchased several thousand of these weapons, but it's unclear to me whether they were ever issued to U.S. soldiers. 3rd, I spent dozens of hours researching the P95 in the general shooting community. The results of that effort are also very favorable. The vast majority of owners report few, if any, problems with the handgun over both short and long-term periods of ownership. So based on all of the foregoing, my conclusion is that the P95 is a highly reliable weapon, at least for civilian usage. It's not clear to me whether this pistol would survive the rigors of extreme military usage, but I have a high degree of confidence that the Ruger P95 does pass muster as far as reliability for civilian usage. So let's move on to our next illity, which is maintainability. We have to get Bella out of the way here. And maintainability, essentially for this weapon, is how easy is it to field strip and reassemble. I can say that this gun is not nearly as easy to field strip as the modern striker-fired weapons such as the Glocks and the Smith & Wesson M&P series, but it's not too terribly difficult. I probably have more difficulty than most because A, I have kind of lousy eyesight, and B, I'm left-handed. And I'll show you what I mean. I'll field strip the gun right now. So the first thing to do is clear the weapon, which I've already done for this video. But we remove the magazine and the gun is empty. After clearing the weapon, first move the safety to the safe position, which on the P95 happens to be down facing, and then lock the slide back. Next is the ejector must be flipped to the downward position in order to allow the slide to clear. Hopefully this shows up on camera, but all you need to do is take your finger and snap the ejector down. Here's where it gets a little tricky, at least for me. You have to release the slide and align the two hash marks. One is on the slide itself and the other on the frame. And for me, they're next to impossible to see. I'm gonna have to put something on there to allow me to align the hash marks easier. But essentially you can use an armorer's grip. I'm not doing that here because I'm trying to get this on camera. But once those two hash marks, which are, if you can see that right in here, from the right side of the gun, you can push the slide stop out. And that comes directly out, and then the slide comes off. Once the slide is off, it's pretty straightforward from there. You simply push in the spring and the barrel comes right out. And that is your basic field strip. Certainly not at all difficult, but not quite as easy or convenient as the modern striker-fired pistols. And Bella removed my slide stop lever for inspection, apparently. So let's get her out of the way and get ourselves a little bit more organized. While I have the gun apart, I'd like to talk about our next ability, which is durability. And I researched reliability and durability contemporaneously. And again, excluding the top and bottom 10%, the durability of the P95, at least by reputation in the community, is highly favorable. And again, I don't have enough information for either personal experience or institutional use, because I've not run thousands and thousands of rounds through the P95, nor can I find reports or information concerning institutional use of the weapon. So we're going strictly on reputation. I do want to address one issue with respect to durability, and that is the Ruger P95 has no steel inserts on the lower part of the receiver. So you do have a steel slide riding directly and only upon the polymer lower. Some of those P95 detractors argue that the lack of steel inserts will cause the lower to wear out under heavy usage. I really don't buy that argument. None of my research on the P95 and the gun community has any indication that the P95s or any other P-series weapons are prone to inordinate amounts of wear on the lower from heavy usage. I'm certainly not saying that steel inserts on other weapons are a waste. The P95s appear to be made of a much different polymer than other weapons such as the Glocks and the FNHs. The Rugers appear to be made out of a thicker and beefier polymer material. So perhaps that is the reason Ruger can get away without having the steel inserts. With many glowing reports of people that have run tens of thousands of rounds through Ruger P95s without undue wear, I think we can certainly give the Ruger P95 a thumbs up for durability, at least for normal civilian usage. Is it as durable as the Glocks and the M&Ps and some other very fine weapons? I really don't know, but I do have a high degree of confidence that this weapon will serve our family very, very well for many decades to come. Reassembly of the P95 is straightforward as well. Simply drop the barrel in and set the spring assembly, and that slide is ready to go. You reinstall the slide to the frame, and here's the hard part for me, is realigning those hash marks. I had to realign the hash marks off camera just because I can't see that well. And I have to find my pin that Bella took. And once everything is lined up, the pin snaps back in. Your slide is reinstalled. The only other thing that must be done to complete reassembly is to reset the ejector, which can be accomplished simply by sticking an empty magazine into the weapon, and that will push the ejector assembly back up. And once that's done, the gun can be functionally checked, and you're back together, ready to roll. So let's move on to supportability. Sturm Ruger is a stable company with a good track record of providing parts support for current and out of production weapons. In addition, the P series models are very popular and there's an abundance of parts on the market. Supportability with respect to training is one area where, in my opinion, the P95 falls short. The one issue I have is first the complexity of the gun. The P95 has a decocker and manual safety. I'm not really a fan of having a separate manual safety on a pistol, especially a defensive pistol. The other issue I have with the safety is that it's basically backwards from most firearms. On the Ruger, down is safe and disengages the trigger, and pushing the safety lever up brings it into fire mode. That is opposite to the functioning of the very popular 1911 type handguns, and it's also exactly opposite to the way in which the more modern Ruger firearms have their safety controls set up. The P95 also has an unusual magazine catch. It's an ambidextrous catch, which is great, but rather than the button, which is in the normal spot at the base of the trigger guard, instead of being pushed in, the button is pushed forward along the longitudinal axis of the gun, and that releases the magazine. If you're used to a more conventional magazine release, that of course could increase your training burden. So in my grade book, I would give the Ruger a C- with respect to supportability because of the goofy controls. Finally, let's explore interoperability. And what that means is how well does this weapon interface with other systems and other accessories one might be expected to use in different defensive strategies. First, let's take a look at magazines. To the best of my knowledge, the P-series magazines of a given caliber are not interchangeable with any other model line of handgun. So if you buy an SR9 or something to that effect, you're also going to be using different magazines. One bright spot with respect to magazines is that they are very plentiful and very affordable as well. For $20 to $30, you can buy either Ruger factory or aftermarket magazines from reputable companies such as Metgar. Another issue always worth consideration with respect to interoperabilities is holsters. If you're going to be carrying the gun, of course you want a good and safe holster. I would be very careful in selecting a holster for this P95 because the magazine release button is actuated by pushing the button forward. I would be very concerned about having a holster that might catch on the magazine release. And when you're withdrawing the gun from the holster, it could actuate the mechanism, which of course would be a very bad situation. Finally, with respect to accessories, the P95 does have an integrated rail in the dust cover, which of course is useful for lasers, weapons lights, etc. The only limitation on this particular rail, which is a 1913 standard type, is that there is only one lateral groove in the rail. So it limits your positioning of any accessories. To show you that, I think I have a weapons light around here somewhere. Here I have a Streamlight TLR series weapon light. And as you can see, it mounts pretty far forward of the trigger guard, and it would be nice to be able to pull this back, but I can't because there's only one lateral cut. So there is a slight limitation on the accessory rail. So that's about all I have on the logistics of the Ruger P95 9mm semi-automatic pistol. In part 3 of this review, we will explore how this particular weapon may fit into your collection. Questions and enlightening comments are always welcome. This is the Suburban Sentinel, along with Bella the Camera Cat, wishing you safe shooting and happy holidays.